Hey guys, what's up? Welcome back to the shop once again. Today, I just want to go off on a little rant and about aftermarket parts, mainly electronic aftermarket parts, because it gets a lot of you out there in a lurch, I would say, because you're going around trying to swap parts out and, you know, try to figure out this code that you're getting or whatever else. And a lot of times, aftermarket parts, cheap, quick, easy to get to, the local store, and they can really throw you for a loop. So you can start changing multiple things, like on this vehicle here, and if you were to put, you know, Ford Motorcraft stuff on there, a little more expensive, usually in stock at the local Ford dealers, you pinpoint it and fix the problem right away. Or at the very least, you would know, hey, like in this case, the O2 was changed. It's replaced, it's new Ford part. I still have the same code, then I know it's not that. With aftermarket, you can go round and round and round. The stories I could tell you. And this is no different right here. So this is a 2012 Taurus, and he has a P2098, which basically means the rear O2 is showing that it's lean all the time. The front's not really showing anything, but the rear is. Why? It's part of all this emission stuff they have nowadays. So they're watching their rear O2 fuel trim basically too. Even though the rear O2 is just for post-catalyst verification, make sure it's working. So catalyst monitors what it is. It's not an actual O2 switching sensor like the upstream is to give accurate, good information to the PCM about the current air-fuel ratio for switching and adjustment. That's all it's supposed to do, is just monitor the cat. And basically it does that by looking for a lack of oxygen. So if the cat's using all oxygen up, we're good to go. It's doing its job. It's active. It's a nice active catalyst bed in there. Usually it's a flat line, like across. But now the newer ones, they're looking for, hey, is it always rich and it's always lean? That's weird. And they're looking at it for fuel trims now to kind of reconfirm the upstream is not an issue, because it all goes back to emissions and fuel economy and all that stuff. Good for the customer drivability. So a little more advanced than back in the day. So in this case, he has a P2098, which is post-catalyst fuel trim system, too lean on bank 2, which is the front of the engine, front of the vehicle on a Taurus, transversely mounted powertrain. So I imagine once the code popped up, figures O2s, this customer said, O2s, I can fix myself. Of course, anybody can really. And he started popping in O2s. He said, I'm just going to change them all. If this one's starting to fail, I'm changing them all. They're obviously starting to get old and they're starting to fail. Let's just change them all if I'm going in there and getting dirty, right? So he went in there, he changed them all. And then he has this issue with the lower one here. And then he starts changing fuel pumps, and maybe it's fuel injectors. We got to pull the intake. Maybe it's a walnut blasting. We need to do that to make sure the air-fuel turbulence going into there is fine. And maybe it's this. Maybe it's a fuel rail pressure sensor. Yeah, it just starts changing everything. And it's like, when I get it, he brought it to me finally, because I guess he couldn't figure it out, and a bunch of other shops couldn't figure it out. And it's very simple. You'll see in the scan tool. I mean, anybody that knows anything about reading live data from a PCM is going to go, that's not right. Better look at that one exact little item. No matter if it's a new O2 or not. So I just want to show you what I did on this one and how quickly and easily it was able to diagnose this. Now, I haven't driven it yet and gotten it heated up to get a good signal from it and verify everything's okay once it's heated. But you'll see there's an initial issue that just blows you away. This is not normal to any technician out there that these other shops should have caught. So enough rambling. Let's go over to the scan tool, show you a few things, and then we'll go under the vehicle and we'll swap out the O2, and I'll show you the difference and how it looks on the scan tool too. All right, let's take a look at a little bit of scan tool data, and you'll see right away there's obviously a problem even without running the engine, key on, engine off. So you can see it's a 2012 Ford Taurus show, so it's an EcoBoost. And it only has 79,000 miles on it, so it's barely broken in. So the only codes in there that was continuous, on-demand, and pending. So it's definitely current issue, it's right there, it's not intermittent, is a 2098. And a 2098, like I said, is a post-catalyst fuel trim. It's just too lean. So basically what it's looking for is post-catalyst, it should be high. 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, flat line. All the way across, okay? Not switching, nothing. Just barely any oxygen there. So the way it works is that the higher the voltage, the less the oxygen. And the lower the voltage, the more oxygen that it's sensing in there, okay? So if you got, 0.1 all the time, real low on the scale, it indicates there's way too much oxygen. Lean. If you're way high, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, that means there's very little oxygen after the cat, and that's what it's looking for. It wants to see that higher voltage like that, which indicates flat line across, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, that the catalyst is active and that it's converting everything and it's using up all the oxygen in the conversion process, okay? Which is why they had air pumps back in the day and all that stuff to help with the conversion process. Very, very important. So if you look at some live data here, right here you can see this is bank 1 sensor 2, downstream, catalyst monitor. Looks good, right? This thing's cold. It's going to sit here and it's just going to read 0 volts. Look at bank 2 right here, which is that 2098 code. Bank 2, S22 right there, right? It's sitting at 2.5 volts. Now, a normal range for an O2 is up to 1 volt. Once you get beyond that, and you're maxed out like that all the time, generally that indicates there's a short in the harness or a short to the heater. Now, the interesting part of this one here is that, again, it's new. It's sitting your key on engine off, and it'll be at 2.5 volts. But as soon as you start it up, it'll just go to 0. 0.01, 0.02. I barely read anything. But it won't show 2.5 anymore. But right here, as a pre-check of that O2 and its operation, there's definitely a problem, especially when cold. Should not be producing anything. So let's go down below. I'm going to try to do this live. We'll go right down below here, and we'll look at it. Okay? And this is a very easy check you can do. So we're at 2.5, and you want to know if it's the O2 or it's the harness causing that short to voltage. So the way it works is that when these O2s short to 12 volts, which is coming in for the heater, it will show more than 1 volt, let's just say. It will not show 12 volts that's coming in. It will only show to the max of the calibrated value for that model year. So back in the day, it was 1.4, and there was 1.1, and then, like this one may show 2.5, but it's not going to be 1 volt. It won't be down in here somewhere. It'll be outer limits. So let's take a look. So right underneath here, if you look underneath here, this O2 right here, in particular vehicle, is right here in the front. And you can see there's an aftermarket one on there, and he's got extra length to it. It's a universal one. And it connects in right there. See it? It's newer. And he thinks it can't be a problem, right? So I'm going to go over here. I'm going to disconnect it while you're over here monitoring this. Let's see if I can get it out there. See that? It just dropped to 0. Reconnect it. Right back up. Disconnect it. Now, is it the harness? Well, according to this, no. So let's plug in the new Ford one right here. Just gonna plug it in and let it dangle. We're gonna do that same check, okay? So I'm gonna go ahead and do that. Okay, ready? Boom. We get a good reading, just like this one. Just like that, we're starting off in a better place, in a proper place. Look at that. And that right there is what's throwing him for a loop. It's a new O2 sensor, aftermarket. It can't be a problem, right? Yes, it is. So then you start changing other parts. Why not? Can't be the O2, it's new. So at this point, I'm gonna install it, get it running, get it heated up, and then we'll see. But before, like I said, this one, eventually once it heats up, it'll start reading just fine. Whereas the bad one would sit there. It'll go from 2.5 and go to like 0.01, 0.02. Wouldn't read anything, which is why it thinks it's lean. So we're gonna go ahead and put it in, get it running, and I'll bring you guys back. All right, so here's the real test. So what I was monitoring before was, of course, fuel trims, because the long terms on bank 2 were 20% or so, almost. You see it's still cold, so the CHG there. So we're gonna monitor both banks O2. And then the current coming out of the O2 on bank 2, which is 21 right there, was hovering way over here instead of right there in the center. And then, of course, we have our post-cat 12 and 22, which is our new O2. Still look good. And they'll start to come alive once we start running it. And then I want to check short terms, make sure we're not whatever. Before was like 5-6% on short terms on bank 2, and then it was 14+% long term learned. So let's go ahead and start it up. And we'll get some live data going here. So they won't start correcting until we get in the closed loop on here. I want to look at my current though for these, and they're both hovering around 0. Bring this up so I can clear it. There we go. So now they're both hovering around 0, which is the upstreams. Like I said before, the bank 2 is way over here, and then bank 1 was just fine. So we'll see how it corrects on there. But we need to start seeing something from the other one. So, okay, so 22, quickly, because it's new. It's warming up already, apparently. That's the one we just changed, is 0.7, 0.8. This one's still waking up. I'm not sure if bank 1's a little bit further away. It's going to take a little longer. Could be the poor quality of the O2 also. But that one does, once it warms up, which is normal, when they're a little further from the source of the heat from the manifold and the cat, they will come up. There it goes, just a little bit longer. There it goes. Okay, so now, let's see, our O2, our primaries are hovering around 0. And then our secondary O2s, you can see on here, so there's 22, the one we just changed, and then there's 12. So they're both reading just fine right now. 0.7, 0.6, 0.8. Perfectly in the range. They're doing what they're supposed to do. Now this right here, just so you guys know, this waviness, if it was fully heated up right now, that would indicate we have a bad catalyst. Not a bad O2, a bad catalyst. But you gotta realize the engine's cold. No, it's up to 116 or so. It's cold outside, it's rainy. It's gonna take a while. So we're gonna go for a drive, and we're going to monitor these. Both the rear and the front bank should be a flat line, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8. Once they heat up and the cat's actually active. It's starting to get there, see it? Flat, 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 longer. So once it heats up, and then this will hover around 0, it's beautiful. And then we'll watch our O2s, or our fuel trims, as they're starting to adjust also. All right, let's take a look after the road test. So you can go from the top here to the bottom. You can see our long-term fuel trims are now in check. Before they're around, 14 to 16, and on the bank 2 there, our current sensor reading of the upstream O2 is also hovering around 0. Before it was all the way off to the left on bank 2. And then, more importantly, our downstreams at 12 and 22 there are sitting there flatline, 0.6, 0.7, 0.8, like they should be. And of course, our short terms are hovering around 0. You couldn't ask for a better outcome. And that right there, it goes to show, using the proper Ford parts, one and done. I'm not saying Ford parts never fail, but I'm telling you, if you put in a new Ford part, chances are, especially electronic parts, you're not going to have an issue. Whereas with the aftermarket, electronics especially, you're probably going to have an issue. So that's it. That's it. At this point, I am done with this vehicle. I did my part. You could see on here, he's complaining about a little bit of a rough idle going on. I have no time for this, though. The other thing I noted on the initial test drive when I first came in is I'm looking at VCT error over here. The VCT error right there. It should be, again, hovering around 0. We're in park. We're at idle. It should be dancing around 0. See a bank, a 1 right there, or 2, I mean. The very bottom one, bank 2, it's hovering around 0. That's where it should be. Look at bank 1 there. It's out in left field. Hovering. So it's hovering, getting a reading, but it's about 5 degrees off. 4 or 5 degrees off. So yeah, that will cause a slight rough idle on there, on that bank. But he came in for a 2098, and as you can see, it is fixed using the proper Ford parts. That's all for now. See you guys next time.